Welcome to the Perfectly Flawed podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. For those that don't know you, would you like to tell me a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, so I hate doing these self-introductions. You never know what you should and shouldn't say. My name's Mitch Morton, and I'm the founder of what is now called the Mr. Anxiety Project. And this project essentially is just me sharing how I managed to overcome the chronic anxiety that I had for 15 years. So I had anxiety from a really early age as a kid, and when I was 17, 18 and going into adulthood, that really ramped up into kind of fifth gear anxiety, I call it, and started to run my life for the next 15 years. And then I kind of hit rock bottom in 2018 and then went on a little mission to kind of work out what anxiety really is. And on that mission, I kind of learned some really, really cool new things and ways of dealing with my anxiety. And then naturally, once I did that, I started to turn things around. I wanted to help other people. So I started an Instagram account and have been just slowly working out a way to share everything that I know about anxiety with other people in the hopes that it might be able to help them a little bit. So during that 15 years, I was very lucky to play AFL football. So that's where some people might know me from. Even luckier to be a member of the Sydney Swans famous 2012 grand final team. Very, very small cog in a very great machine that day. So very lucky to be part of that. So some people might recognise my name from around then. I guess I just period of my life at the moment where I'm sharing as much as I can about mental health and life, and hopefully it can help other people. So at the moment, I'm basically just doing a podcast in the mornings for 15 minutes where I share little things about life and tips that help me with my anxiety. And then I do an event basically in Perth once a month, pretty much a live event. I can't get to the East Coast at the moment, which is really annoying. Due to COVID, it's too hard to kind of book in advance. And then I do Zoom calls as well, so people can go through my Instagram and book a Zoom call. Just sit down for 60 or 90 minutes and share everything I know, basically. Everything I've learned in the last 2.5 years. I've read around 150 books and just went on this mission to understand, at a scientific, neurological level, what anxiety is, and fell in love with neuroscience and how our brains really work. I'm starting my master's in neuroscience in 6 weeks, so very excited about that. I guess that's my intro.
Yeah, it's a pretty extensive intro, which is great. You said that you suffered anxiety for around 15 years. When did you first know that's what it was? Or when did you know that something wasn't quite right?
They are two different answers. So I had my first experience with anxiety when I was 7 years old. I was getting ready for a running race in a tiny little farming community where I'm from, about 4 hours southeast of Perth. And as we were getting up to the starting line, I ran off and vomited in the toilet. So it was kind of like my first experience with performance anxiety. But I was 7, I didn't know what it was. And then slowly throughout my childhood, it got worse and worse. And then I guess I was living a pretty normal life at the start of year 12. I was kind of vomiting before football games and exams and stuff like that. But other than that, I was basically normal. And then in year 12, it just went bang. I call that next 5-year period of my life WTF, because I just had no idea what was wrong with me, but I knew something was wrong. So that was a really challenging period of my life, and I kind of just got worse and worse, and anxiety kind of spiraled a little bit, I guess. And then when I was 22 or 23, I found out that it was anxiety, and I went on a 3-year period of trying different ways of dealing with it through the system. I call the system kind of the medical system, I guess, GPs, meds, psychiatrists, psychologists. I went and did all of that for 3 years non-stop. A really difficult period of my life. And then I kind of just gave up when I was 25. Gave up on trying to fix it. I knew it was anxiety, but just gave up. And, as human beings, when we have that kind of pain within us and we are struggling so much, we naturally just find ways to numb it. So then obviously I just started to self-medicate and do lots of stupid things and try to numb that pain. And that went on until 2018 when I hit rock bottom, as I mentioned before, and decided I was going to work out what anxiety is. And then here we are. So it's been a very interesting, 2 or 3 years, that's for sure.
Yeah, so a lot of your anxiety, or majority of it, has been performance-based.
Yeah, well, it started like that. I think it starts as a kid. It was kind of revolved around, especially moments where it was a distinct performance. obviously lining up for a running race or a swimming race or an exam starting, something like that, was quite distinctive in that, like, it's like you're sitting waiting for a performance to start. So that was really challenging where it started, and then it evolved into football. By the time I was 16, 17, I'd start to vomit before games, and then I'd start feeling sick the day before, but then once football became my full-time job when I was 17, November 2004, and that thing that had been causing me performance anxiety became my job, and that's when it went to kind of full-blown anxiety, 24/7, really, really struggling, social anxiety, the works. Yeah. So that's when it tipped over into the full-blown anxiety.
Yeah. How else did it come out in footy? Because obviously, I mean, there's quite a strong masculine culture in football, and I personally think that there is definitely a stigma around men speaking about their feelings. How did you go with that?
Oh, I struggled big time. I think the combination of growing up in a rural community where the culture out in those communities has always been kind of just get on with it, which is, I guess, we need to remember that, and I don't hold anything against anyone. That's just the way things were out there, and kind of, to an extent, they always will be in the bush because it's quite a difficult lifestyle out there. You got to remember that, it was only 2 generations ago, in the, early to mid 1900s, that people were out there clearing land. People went down and cleared land. My family cleared land down there. So in those days, it was kind of just grit your teeth and get on with it, because you had to kind of push through things. But that's getting harder and harder to do because life's getting easier physically, but harder mentally. So just pushing through stuff, kind of, it ends up causing you more mental grief than physical in the end. So that was kind of the culture that I grew up with, just get on with it. So that day when I first experienced anxiety when I was 7, my teacher asked me what was wrong, and I said nothing. And that started a trend for me of just, no matter how bad my anxiety was or how far off the rails my life was, I just pushed through it. I hid it from everybody else, and I just gritted my teeth and pushed through. And obviously being part of a football club, yeah, I mean, it's probably more the sense that you want to perform. You want to do your best to make the most of the opportunity that you've got. That was the toughest thing for me. In reality, I should have walked away, sorted myself out, and then maybe got an opportunity later in life to have another go at it. Who knows? But pushing myself through what I did basically ruined both the opportunity to have a proper, rewarding and enjoyable career, but also have a rewarding life, because I spent all my energy, the energy that I did have, on my football career, and my life fell apart on the outside. And life's not about football. Life's about friendships and connection, and being part of communities and your family. And I'm disappointed that those things fell away while I kind of chased achievements. And you can't keep yourself warm with achievements, and achievements don't call you and check on how you are. Family and friends do, so you've got to put time into that stuff. So that culture that I grew up in is nobody's fault. It's just the way things are, but it definitely made it harder for me. It took me a long time to kind of go, no, I need to put effort into this. I need to actually put time into this. And the reason that I share my story now and I do these podcasts and put myself out there is so that other people feel comfortable talking about it, because I didn't. So if I can make one person, 2 people, 3 people feel more comfortable about where they're at and asking someone for help or speaking up or acknowledging that their anxiety is getting in the way of living a good life, and that's job done for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's so many important things that you touched on there. And it's interesting, through different people that I've spoken to through this podcast and listening to other podcasts, is that being an athlete, we're very much in a bubble of the sport and very focused, almost like tunnel vision in that world. But when you strip away all your achievements, what kind of person are you? And a lot of people value their success on the type of person that they are.
Yeah, and I did a podcast this morning on, would you be willing to sacrifice your life for a gold medal? And because those athletes were phenomenal athletes, best in the world, unbelievable. A lot of them are cut out for it, but a lot of people wouldn't be able to do that and stay mentally sound. And one of my favourite quotes is by a philosopher from the 18th century named Adam Smith, and he talks about, yes, some situations in life are more what's the word for it? Are more preferred over others, but none of them are worth ruining the tranquility of your mind for. So pushing yourself through hell to achieve some thing, I know I've done it. I promise you, when you achieve it, you'll feel just like you do now. So don't ruin your life. Don't ruin your relationships, your friendships, your family, the time with your family and friends. Don't miss out on the day-to-day life for something, because you will regret it in the end if you do. And people that can go away and win a gold medal in the Olympics and live a normal life, well, they're cut out for it. And they are phenomenal people, but not everybody's like that. So as a society, we really put up there on a pedestal these people that do those things, and that's great. They work really hard for it. But a lot of people wouldn't be able to do that and live a normal life. So people need to just remember that life's about your relationships with people and communities. It's not so much about what you achieve. And then you don't want to go and upset the tranquility of your mind and cause yourself, issues by pushing for something, because you're just going to feel like you do now anyway. So just enjoy the now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a great example of that in recent times is Simone Biles saying that her mental health was more important than that gold medal.
Absolutely. And it's so good to hear somebody stand up and say that. And, she'll get slammed by everybody, but, not everyone understands what it's like to have a mental health issue. And if she's struggling with anxiety and was causing her to not enjoy that performance, I think a lot of people don't know what that feeling is like. So the best way that I can explain it is, imagine, just to give people a bit of an idea of what she's actually feeling when she's going to do those moves, whatever you want to call them, the performance that she does. Don't know what gymnasts call it. But imagine you're out with your friend and he throws you a basketball, and you pretty much everyone in the world who's able will catch that basketball. Your friend just throws you a basketball, you catch it. Now I want you to imagine that someone's holding a gun, two people either side of you holding a gun, and someone says, if you drop this basketball, we're going to pull the trigger on that gun. We're going to pull the triggers on that gun. Are you ready to catch it? Just think about that for a sec, how you'd feel. Think about the difference. You would start to analyze. You would start to be so worried about catching that basketball that you actually might drop it. That's the easiest thing in the world, catching a basketball. You could do it. You could almost just do it with your eyes closed. But if two people were standing there holding a gun, saying your life depends on catching this basketball, this moment is like everything, then A, you might drop it, but B, you wouldn't enjoy it, would you? You wouldn't enjoy that. And that's what it feels like to have anxiety. You feel like every moment is kind of your last. You feel scared. You feel like every single moment is it. It is the performance. It is everyone is watching, and it's do or die. That's not enjoyable. So if that's what Simone Biles is feeling when she's going to do one of her performances, she feels like this. That's exactly how she feels. How can you, honestly, how can you have a go at her pulling out of that event or the Olympic Games when that's how she feels? I know how that's how she feels. Guess why? Because I did it. I played AFL for 9 years, and I felt like that every single training session, every single game. And I look back now and go, what was I doing? Why would you push yourself through that? Because there are consequences to that. That chews up all your energy. Then when you finish, you've got no energy to do anything else. Very hard to enjoy the rest of your life when you know that's how you're going to feel. So I'd have training every day, so I'd feel like that every day. I might get a bit of time off before the game, but I knew I was going to feel like that during the game. So how much do you think I enjoyed the day before the game and the night before and the lead up to the game? It was traumatic when you know that's how you're going to feel, and I'd start vomiting 4 or 5 hours before it. So if that's how Simone Biles is feeling, people need to just have a good look at themselves if they're having a crack at her for pulling out of those games. Imagine if someone did that to you at your work, came and said, this moment right now, if you don't perform in this moment right now, that is, because that's how she feels. Whether that's right or wrong, a lot of this mental health stuff, it's caused by our conditioning in life, which is a result of heaps of different things. It's not a lot we can do about it in the moment. So it's very, very difficult to just push through that. So I think it's fantastic that she's done what she's done. I think we can all learn from it. I wish I was as brave as she was back when I was playing sport.
Absolutely. It's pretty amazing that she's been able to do that. Do you think that it comes down to an athlete mindset, being able to push through that? Like there's this, trying to think of the right word, this perception, I guess, that an athlete has to be strong both physically and mentally so that you're just expected to be able to push through that?
I just don't think people understand what it actually feels like to start to deteriorate mentally. Like, I don't have anxiety anymore. I can push through things now. I can push through things. If pressure ramps up, I have ways of dealing with it now, and I can deal with it. I can push through it, and I enjoy doing things that challenge me now. But 2 years ago, no way, I didn't, and I couldn't push through things. So it's the same person can be in a different mindset at different times in their life, which we've seen with Simone Biles as well. She's a great example. A few years ago, she was able to cope with it. Now she's not. And people are just expecting us all to be able to handle things the way that they handle things, but they have different conditioning to us. So a lot of these commentators that come out and are having a go at Simone Biles, nobody cares about these commentators' lives. They're not under the pressure. They're not on the front page of the paper. People aren't tuning in to watch them and haven't been for years and years and years. That makes sense. They're not performing. They're just talking. You know how easy it is to talk compared to going out there and practicing years and years and years to do a performance that the whole world is watching. They're watching. And then having to nail that performance, which is hard in itself without anybody watching, compared to jumping on a TV show or a podcast and talking. I'm talking right now. Anybody can talk, but actually doing what she does is so hard. Then you add that pressure, and that, exactly like I was saying before, this is it moment. Oh, I can't. You add that pressure. It's not only hard, it's impossible. Impossible. So her competing would have been impossible, and I'm not sure we want to advocate for people to be pushing themselves through things that they physically and mentally can't do.
Absolutely. What was it like for you then in the midst of your career when you say, the anxiety build up, just even going to training every day and then knowing, okay, we'll have a game on the weekend, I know how I'm going to feel leading in, and that feeling is there before the games even come. What was that like?
I was very difficult, very difficult. And it's only in hindsight that I'm able to look back and see how disappointed I am in myself that I pushed myself through it. Because you see, as human beings, we are either in a drive to connect or a drive to survive. That's it. I've heard Oprah Winfrey say we only have two emotions, love and fear. They're all kind of derivatives of those two emotions, all the other ones that we have. So I was in survival mode 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, survival mode. So that meant I didn't have the opportunity to connect and build, really strong, viable friendships, be part of communities, keep in contact with people I went to school with. There are people who I would consider very good friends that I haven't spoken to since I left school. There's nothing sadder in the world than that statement. Forget about losing your job. Forget about I've lost jobs. I was unemployed and driving an Uber. I've been there, I can say that. Forget about all that stuff and money stuff. My anxiety cost me friendships. And that is very, very hard for me to swallow right now. Very, very hard, because I would give anything to go back and have those friendships again. And I'm trying my best to mend as many of them as I can. But I was constantly in survival mode. It was just about getting through each day. I was just trying to get through the day. I was just hiding. It was just about getting through the day. I never went to a training session looking to improve or get better. It was honestly just about getting through. I had no energy. I wasn't in a state to be developing and growing, and I never really improved my whole career. I just was there, just did my best. I just survived. Probably very difficult to coach and be a teammate with. When you're in that survival mode, it's very hard to learn and develop and take on new things. I did my best, but not suffering from debilitating anxiety made it very, very hard. When I read about athletes now who are going through that, pushing and pushing and pushing, I wonder how they're going to feel about it later, because I know that I regret not putting enough time into my connections in that part of my life. And you can't just flick a switch or turn a tap on and start a friendship again. It doesn't work like that. So it was very difficult to play sport. But I left playing sport, and then my job was difficult. It was difficult doing everything. I thought kind of football gave me anxiety, but then I left football and my anxiety got worse. So it's not necessarily just the sport and the performance. It's just the anxiety started to tear away at every part of my life. So it doesn't matter what you're striving for, you have to sort your mindset out and get into a good frame of mind, because even if you achieve something, you're not going to enjoy it anymore.
Yeah. So you got your diagnosis officially around 22. Did it ever cross your mind to say anything to players, coaches, anyone else in the AFL to give them a heads up, like, hey, this is what's going on for me, just to let you know? So if I come to training and I seem a bit off, this is probably why.
I mean, I had time off training at various points, a couple of weeks here, a month there, and the clubs that I was at were fantastic. I was at the Richmond Tigers 2008 to 2007, 8 to 2011, end of 2011. And they were fantastic whenever I had any issues. But, a lot of this stuff with mental health is very easy to look back. Now that I'm in a good frame of mind, to go, oh, I could have done this, I could have done that. But like I said, I was just fumbling my way through each day. Just getting through the day was so hard. It took up every ounce of my energy. So I wasn't consciously in a good place to be able to, rationally think about decisions that would make it easier for me, make decisions that would make it easier for me to perform or be part of that community. I was just trying to get through. So it never really crossed my mind to do things like that, make it easier on myself, because I was trying to hide it, if anything. Just push through and pretend that I was doing okay, when in reality it wasn't at all.
Yeah. And I've heard quite often that you don't necessarily get better until you're like ready for help. Do you think that could have been applicable to you, that those strategies that when you were trying to get help and they didn't work, do you think that they didn't work because you weren't in a place to take them on board?
I think it takes, unfortunately, it normally takes quite a big shock in our lives for us to realise, okay, this has caused my mental health, deterioration, has caused the loss of something, or an opportunity to be missed, or a relationship to fall apart. Or often it takes something quite intense for us to then have the drive to make changes, to go on a journey and search. It took me a long time to actually work all this stuff out that I show other people. Getting to the nitty gritty of what I've worked out about how I deal with my anxiety took me a couple of years and 150 books. Do you know how much time that is? We're talking about 2 years of reading on Saturdays and Sundays, and listening to an audio book half an hour in the morning, half an hour at night, reading at night, like literally sacrificing my life for 2 years to just read, research, and watch TED Talks and videos, and just going on a mission. I did that because in 2018 I hit rock bottom and I was just down and out, and it was just the worst moment of my life. So it took something like that for me to turn it around. I'm not sure until things like that happen that we have the drive to really make changes. That's me from my personal experience. Some people do. Some people are really good at just understanding that if they put time into something, they can improve it and it'll improve their lives. I'm not one of those people. I need kind of a shock to kick me into gear. I don't look at myself now and go, I think if I put this much time into my health and fitness, I can get this fit. It would take for me to kind of like put on a few kilos and not feel good about myself. And then I'm like, oh, geez, I need to do that. That's just me. Not everyone works like me. There are people out there who are really good at understanding where they're at now and seeing where they want to go and then doing it. But I think a lot of people kind of unfortunately, need to have that shock moment, and then it's like, wow, I need to fix it now. So that's kind of what I've learned with my experience and from what I gather with the communication I have with people.
Yeah, I'm definitely the same. It takes a bit of a shock to the system for me, like, oh, I actually need to do something about this now.
Spot on.
Reflecting back to your premiership match with Sydney, how did you think about it at the time versus how do you reflect on it now?
Oh, it's a funny thing playing in a grand final when it's a really close game, because you're only a couple of ball bounces the wrong way and this and that, and we're not talking about it. You know what I mean? And it's not a good day in my life. It's one that I wish I did more things. So, I look back and I'm so privileged to have had the opportunity to do that, to even play AFL in general, to be a part of 3 fantastic football clubs, to be a life member of the Sydney Swans and be a part of that team is a privilege and an honour. And, like I said at the start, I was a very small cog in a great machine. And it's, so humbling to look back and be part of that and get to go to reunions, call those teammates, my teammates for life, because we're bonded with that very special game. The day itself was very difficult for me. It was the first day of my life, the first performance or game of my life where I actually started vomiting the day before. So there had always been, I would always struggle to keep my breakfast down, and then any Powerade or water I drank would come up before the game as I ran out. But grand final day, I had a full-on meltdown. I was vomiting the day before. So dinner came up, couldn't sleep. I remember looking at myself in the mirror after going to the toilet at about 4:30 a.m. and just going, how am I going to do this? It's 4 o'clock or 4:30 and I haven't slept. And we're up at 7 or 7:30 for a walk. I just thought, how am I going to get through today? Like I said, it was just survival. Every day of my life wasn't just football. It continued after football. It's just survival. It's just trying to get through the day without stuffing up, without being caught out. It's very hard to explain because I'm not in that mindset now. So I don't know how I did it. And I don't know why I did it, why I pushed myself so much, because now I just enjoy the simple things in life. This podcast, for example, I was in a rush this morning and we just pushed it back 15 minutes. In 10 years ago or 5 years ago, I would have rushed and to get back, and I would have been under the pump worrying about being late, and it would have kind of ruined what I was doing this morning. But I just sent you an email and a message saying, can we push it back 15 minutes? Sorry, I've been running late. Yeah, that's the difference. Like, I wouldn't have done that 2 or 3 years. I know that sounds to someone who doesn't have anxiety, but you're just so worried about putting other people out and what they're going to think of you and performances and time. I just don't know how I pushed through it, to be honest. But I look back and I'm really humbled to be a part of that day. So it's and really proud of what we achieved as a team. So it's a difficult memory. It's a difficult memory.
Yeah, I can imagine it would be. You've mentioned a couple times that rock bottom for you was in 2018. What was rock bottom?
I'd lost a partner. We'd broken up. My behaviour was pretty shocking. For 5 years after I finished playing sport professionally, I just spiraled. I had 10 jobs in 5 years, lived in 3 cities, 3 or 4 cities, had 2 or 3 different partners, changed uni degrees a few times. I was just spiraling. I was having these panic attacks at my job in Sydney in early 2018, and my relationship wasn't going that well. And I said to my partner, I need to be around my family. I'm from Perth, full country, Western Australia, but my family's in all over WA. I said, I need to be around my family. If you leave, I don't know how I'm going to do these, get through these panic attacks and these moments. So I moved back in with my parents out in the bush, a couple of hours east of Perth. Was there for 4 or 5 months. Partner at the time was working on a farm out there for a visa. And I was just trying to fumble my way through, trying to do things, seeing a psych, trying to work on my anxiety. And then broke up with my partner, moved back to Perth, couldn't get a job. I just finished a finance degree, couldn't get a job. Perth a couple of years ago, the economy wasn't like this now. Couldn't get a job. I was driving an Uber for about $14 an hour it works out at. It's pretty much slave labour, what those companies do. Went on for about 10 or 12 weeks. I had a car loan, home loan, credit card debt, uni debt, the government. owed my parents money, paying rent, staying in a spare room at my friend's house. And my anxiety was so bad that I couldn't drive the Uber for more than kind of 4 or 5 hours a day. I was just like, every minute was painful. You're driving an Uber, and I don't really want to go into the details of it, but it's not an easy job. The maps are always wrong. People put in the wrong address. For someone with anxiety, it was people get in the car, it was just it's a shocking job to do if you've got anxiety. Getting through a few hours of that was just absolutely painful. And I would do it. I would go back to bed. I would lie in bed, and I would literally say to myself, this isn't a joke. I would say, please wake up. And this has been a nightmare. I was like, please, I would sit in bed and I would say, please wake up. In the last 15 years of my life has been a nightmare. And I wake up and I'm in year 12 at school, and I get to do this again and sort my anxiety out and live a normal life. And this went on for months. And then I was at the point where I'd stopped talking to my parents because they were so worried about me. I'd seen my mum, and she said, I've never seen you give up. She's like, you've given up, haven't you? And I was like, yeah, I'd given up. I don't know. I wasn't sure what the next step was or what I wanted to do. My dream was just to get on a plane and never see anybody ever again. I just wanted to get on a plane and just, like, with what I had on, go to the airport and then disappear somewhere in Asia. Never ever talk to anybody or see anybody again. Just go and start life again. And I stopped talking to my parents. I got to a Friday, and every minute of the day got to the point where I was just in that much pain. I was just that anxious. I just didn't know what to do. So I called my ex-partner. Didn't have anyone else to call. I'd lost touch with all my friends and kind of family. And I called my ex-partner, and I just broke down. And I just broke down. I couldn't even talk. And after a while, she said something. And then when she started talking, I could tell in her voice that she was like, well, why are you calling me? Like, you're not my problem anymore. And hearing that did something that it sparked something that had never been sparked before in my life. And that was a pure hate for my anxiety. In that moment, it was like just my whole life flashed. The last 15 or 16 years had flashed before me, and I'd realized in a moment what anxiety had done to my life. Because I'd always blame myself, really. I genuinely take responsibility for everything that I do. But in a moment, I had a little poor me moment, and it hit me like a brick in the face that anxiety had destroyed every single part of my life. And I got off the phone and I texted her and I said, I promise that this relationship is the last thing that my anxiety is going to ruin. I'm going to figure out what it is, and I'm going to beat it. And I blocked her number so I wouldn't contact her again. And I woke up the next day and I called my mum and said, Mum, I'm having a couple of years off life to go away and work out what anxiety is. Because the medical definition of anxiety is intense, persistent, excessive thoughts of fear or dread. And that didn't make a lot of sense to me. I wanted to know more about it. I thought, if this thing's going to destroy my life, at least I want to know what's happening neurologically, physiologically, biologically. At a cellular level, what is happening when I get anxiety? I kind of asked a couple of sites, and the answer wasn't deep enough for me. So I got up the next day, told Mum that, having a couple of years off life, and I went and got a book from Gimmicks. And I read the book that day, and the next day. It was quite a long book. And then I read another book, and another book, and another book, and I just went on this mission, reading and putting together an understanding of what anxiety is. And something also hit me really, really hard, really early on in that process. And this might be a little bit controversial. I don't know how people will take the statement. But what hit me was that all of these treatment options and therapies and things that I'd gone through in the system, they're all based on theories. I'm going to say that again. The medical system is based on theories, not science, theories. And it works for a lot of people. I'm not knocking it, but it also doesn't work for a lot of people. But knowing that it was based on theories, medication for depression is based on the chemical imbalance theory. It's literally right there in the wording. Now, I wasn't trying to go, oh, F you to the medical system. It just sparked this curiosity. Okay, well, what other theories are out there? What else can I look at? So I started looking at neuroscience and how our brains are wired, and then started to get into, I won't go too much into it, but I'm about to start my master's in neuroscience because I love it so much. And the way that I've learned to deal with my anxiety has nothing to do with thoughts, nothing at all. I don't even bother with them. I do not consciously work on my anxiety one bit. When I'm in a situation that makes me anxious, I'm focusing on that reaction, that automatic reaction, that, oh, when your body gets filled with those stress chemicals and it takes over, because they come first before the thoughts. And if you want an example of that, next time somebody goes to do any public speaking, you'll feel that in your stomach before anything else. You'll feel that feeling tighten up through your chest and your throat before you start worrying about what you're going to say. I promise you, because that part of our brain, our subconscious mind, operates way more efficiently and faster than our conscious mind. So, and the way that it communicates is through hormones and chemicals in the body. So once I started to learn about the way that our brains are hardwired and the ways that neuroscience says to deal with anxiety, I started coming up with these little programs and trying little activities and kind of working on little things, and I started to feel better. My anxiety started to feel better. I started to realize how not normal my life had been for 15 years, because when I had that anxiety and I was going through all this stuff that we talk about in the past, that was just my life. That was normal. I didn't know that I was having anxiety and it was ruining my life. That was my life. It's only now looking back that I live a normal life. You know, like I said before about pushing this podcast back 15 minutes, I wouldn't have done it 3 years ago. I didn't know that there was the option to do that 3 years ago, because I would have just been so worried about getting there on time and letting you down and all these things that I used to worry about so much. But that wasn't an option. So it was only when I started to feel better that I was like, wow, I can't believe, I was just like, I can't believe that I live like this. And then naturally, once you go through that, you're just like, wow, I have to help other people. So then I started Mr. Anxiety Project after kind of started to feel better and wanted to share what I've learned. And what I share isn't advice. It's not therapy. It's just information. All of that information that I went and gathered when I read all those books and talked to psychiatrists and GPs and neuroscientists, all of that information, I just share with people. And it's up to them to do whatever they want with it. You know, I don't ask anybody what makes them anxious. I don't ask anybody what they do for work or where they live, or I just tell them the information that helps me deal with anxiety, and it's up to them to do what they want with that.
Yeah, that's really great. So you said that Mr. Anxiety started from the need to wanting to share and help people based on the information that you had learned. What was the thought process in terms of what was the goal apart from that? Like, where did you see it going?
I spent my whole life worrying and planning things. That was what anxiety did to me. I was constantly thinking. I try to live my life now. This might sound a bit bizarre, but I try to live my life now with my subconscious mind, not my conscious mind. So if you look at how we experience the present moment, it's actually experienced through feelings and sensations. It's actually experienced through our body, which is our subconscious mind. It's how it communicates through chemicals and hormones and tells us whether we're safe or not safe or whatever, essentially. This obsession that we have as a society with cognitively processing and rationalizing everything, I just threw it away. I don't do it anymore. So when we are thinking about things, we're either thinking about the past or the future, if that makes sense. Thinking about right now would be thinking about the past moment that's just been, because right now we experience this through sensations, our 8 senses: sight, sound, touch, taste, smell, and then interoception, proprioception, and vestibular, which we won't go into too much, but are 3 other senses that we use. So those 8 senses allow us to experience any present moment. When we're thinking, we're either thinking back then or for then in the future. So I just try not to do that anymore. So Mr. Anxiety started as me wanting to help other people. And I'm just feeling my way through that, working out what feels good for me to share, working out how to do it and how I can kind of turn it into something that allows me to put food on the table. That's been the hardest thing. I really enjoy running Instagram. and doing videos and posts and stuff like that. But turning it into something that can allow me to spend all of my time on it has been difficult. And I feel like bad for wanting to get paid to give this information away, because I love doing it for free. But the reality is I can't, because otherwise I've got to go get a job and then I can't work on this like I do. What I really love spending my time on is my study. And I call it study because I literally read textbooks, but in 6 weeks or whatever it is, I'm turning that into official study in a master's program through an institute in London, which is cutting edge of research for mental health issues and how we can apply a mix of psychiatry, psychology, and neuroscience to it. I love spending my time going through all that tough stuff and then grabbing all that information and turning it into stuff that other people can relate to. Because most of what I read is in textbooks or scientific journals or peer-reviewed journals, and it's not much fun to read. But I enjoy reading that. Well, I don't enjoy reading it. I enjoy turning that into videos and posts that people can relate to. So that's what I want to spend my time on, and it's really time consuming, but I need an income to do that. And it's been really difficult for me, kind of being like, hey, I need to do some things that you guys can have to pay for, because I love doing it for free on Instagram. But I live off my savings at the moment. My parents have given me a loan that I have to pay back. That ended in June, the financial year. So now it's kind of me off my savings and trading a little bit of stocks and stuff, because I have a finance degree, and just hustling my way through and trying to turn it into something that I can do full time. And hopefully I can do that. So at the moment, that's why we're doing Zoom calls, we do live events. I love doing the Instagram stuff, but it's also very hard to convey knowledge and information in 15-second or 60-second clips. You kind of need people there listening, and that's why I love the Zoom calls, because we do 60 or 90, 80 or 90 minutes. People can ask questions when they want. We can stop the presentation, ask a question, work through it. It's great. That's my favorite thing to do, is sit down and do that with people. And like I said, I don't ask them about their anxiety. It's just me sharing what I learned. It's all just information. So really enjoying that at the moment, and just feeling my way through what's working and what isn't and what makes me feel good. And people often say, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And I'm like, I don't want to. And they're like, but you could earn money doing that. And I'm like, I earned lots of money playing football and I didn't enjoy it. So yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do what I like and enjoy, and that makes it a bit harder for me to get going. Well, so be it.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing to remember, and particularly those in school as well. Like, obviously having an education is important, it can be helpful, but if it's not something that you enjoy doing, and I'm not saying like not to do it, but it's important to keep in mind doing things that you enjoy, you're more likely to excel at as well.
Well, people have been asking me for months, am I going to do a counselling or a psychology degree? Because I should have one to counsel people. And I agree. If I was going to be doing counselling and giving people advice on what they should do, yeah, I should have a counselling and psychology. But I went through the degrees, both, and I got the course guides from various universities and teaching institutions. And I counted how many units. So I have a diploma and I have a bachelor's of finance. So I know how study works. There are 24 units in a bachelor's course. There are 12 to 18 in a master's. So in a bachelor of psychology, I counted how many units would actually benefit me doing what I do. And there were 3 out of 24. 3 out of 24. I don't want to waste my time doing 21 other units that I don't want to do, that are not enjoyable, so that I can have a bit of paper that says I can counsel people. I want to spend my time actually doing study that's going to improve how I explain to people how I beat my anxiety. Do you know how many units of the masters that I'm starting in 6 weeks are going to help me improve the way that it's going to take me 2 years full time, 30 hours a week, like full on. It's expensive. It's going to be difficult, really difficult. Do you know how many of those 18 units are going to help me to improve the way that I show people what I've learned? Every single one of them. Every single one of them. So am I going to walk away being able to do one-on-one therapy? No. But I don't necessarily think I need to do therapy to help people, because once people have the information that I have, they can help themselves. All of the information that I gathered, most of it was from medical professionals anyway, psychiatrists and doctors, psychologists. And people can go and get that information from books. I'm just teaching people what they can learn from books. I just save people time, really. Like I just save people time and money. So I teach people, in an hour in a Zoom call, what took me 2.5 years of reading and research to find. Like none of this is my own theory that I made up whilst walking the dog, just come up out of thin air. I kind of went and read all this stuff and then tested it and trialed it. I just share what works for me. And I'm so excited about doing this study and actually learning more stuff that I can share with other people. So it's going to be an interesting couple of years. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I think obviously you're going to get a lot from it and it's something that you enjoy. You mentioned that you can share information through social media, but obviously it's limited to how much you can get out there. What kind of impact do you think social media has?
Well, social media is a really difficult thing. It's because of the access that we have to it, how easy it is to grab your phone and look at it. It's depends on how you use it, I think. Depends on how you use it. For instance, well, there used to be a saying that you become the average of the 5 people that you hang around, spend the most time with. So it's called a reference point in life, right? We have reference points, and who we spent the most time with would change our reference points. So if you spend time with, if your 5 best friends are all finance bankers who earn $400,000, and you're working for the government earning $70,000, you're going to feel like you don't have enough money. That's really, really simple equation, isn't it? Because you hang around them, they've got fancy cars, they're talking about fancy dinners and going on fancy holidays. You can't afford that, you're going to feel like you don't have enough money. But that very same person whose 5 friends, best friends, are council workers or government, or they're like social workers, and they have community-based roles where they're really giving back to the community and working on things that benefit people but don't necessarily earn a lot of money, then you're going to feel like you have enough money, and you might feel like the work that you're doing contributes to society. I'm not saying bankers and financiers don't contribute to society, but they contribute in different ways. I don't think anyone would argue with me that someone who's a social worker isn't attempting, doesn't have a more altruistic role than a banker. I don't think anyone would argue that, but I'm not generalizing, because there are people from, different employment backgrounds who impact society in different ways. But I think we can look at in general. I don't think anyone would argue at that point. So it's all about our reference points in life. I feel like at the moment, I don't have the money to do things that I used to do, that I'm sacrificing, but I just enjoy having a coffee and beer and going to the gym, and I don't really have expensive tastes. But compared to kids in Africa, I still have a lot of money. I'm still in the 1 or 2%. But my reference point, I played football, so a lot of my friends still play football and have jobs that they earn a lot of money and stuff like that. So they're my reference points. So that makes it a bit of a battle for me to truly be grateful for what I have. Now, social media has flipped that around, because the 5 people that we are exposed to the most, we don't know. They might be influencers, they might be celebrities, and they're just putting up their highlights. So that changes your reference point. So your reference point might be this person you don't even know. And the thing is, you don't know how hard it is for those people to do what they do. I run an Instagram account where I share a lot of stuff on there for this anxiety stuff. It's pretty relentless. I've got to tell you, it's pretty relentless having to post every day and do stories every day and do a podcast every morning. If I don't do it, guess who's doing it? No one. And you've got to keep it ticking over to grow and keep people's eyes on it. It's pretty relentless. On the weekend, I had to go and play football. It's a 4-hour drive, play football, get up early, come back. There's not a lot of time, but you got to make time to post stuff and keep people engaged. And, I run one for anxiety, but there are people who literally just have to post photos of them doing cool stuff. Otherwise, people will follow someone else posting stuff of people doing cool stuff. So it's pretty relentless, but we don't see what happens behind the scenes. I have a friend who earns a lot of money as a real estate agent. Yeah, you see his life. He's got a new house, a new car. He answers his phone about 120 times a day. A lot of people wouldn't want to do that. He has really difficult phone calls with people, really difficult phone calls and stuff like that. He works 7 days a week. He hardly gets to go on holidays. He's constantly working. A lot of people wouldn't do that for that nice car and that house, but they don't see that, do they? They just see the house and the car. On social media, we just see the house and the car. We just see the highlights. We just see what people want us to see. It's not a true reflection of what's actually happening in life. And even though we might know that, our brains are constantly looking to save energy. So they don't go into that depth when we see things. It just looks at it and goes, oh, nice car, bang. Next picture, someone on a holiday, nice holiday. You're sitting there not feeling good about yourself because constantly taking misinformation in, wondering whether you're enough. So it's dangerous. So I think we need to get better at how we use it. Sometimes I unfollow people because I'm like, nah, I don't want to see your highlights. Sorry. I know you and I know what your life's like, and you're just showing highlights. And I'm like, don't want to see it. Show me a bit of real stuff and I'll follow you. And I've had this idea recently of doing this night, maybe at a pub somewhere and having a beer with a few mates, for men who, might not feel comfortable speaking up. And we just have a night where we catch up and talk about all the things that are hard in our lives. So I could talk about the fact that I've got to do Instagram every day. And people are like, oh, you got a lot of followers and you're going. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's quite difficult. I nearly throw my phone at the wall all the time because I can't get the lighting right, because it's not natural for me to do this sort of stuff. And my friend who earns a lot of money selling houses might say, hey guys, I haven't had a day off in 8 weeks. I don't have time to do anything. My phone's ringing now. I've got 3 voicemails since we've been here. People go, wow, that's hectic. And someone else might say, oh, I'm the opposite, man. I don't earn much money, but I play golf twice a week, but I don't have enough money to buy a new car. And people are like, oh man, you get to play golf twice a week? That's unreal. I got a new car, but I don't get to play golf. You get it? Like, we all sacrifice things to have whatever life we have. And they've done studies where they've worked out that the optimal amount of money that you need to be happy, to the point where your happiness level gets here, and to get it there requires heaps more money. So yeah, having more money is good, but being a billionaire is great, but you got to sacrifice a lot to get there. And that amount of money, which can get us to like X amount of happiness, that is awesome, and we can live a really happy life without sacrificing too much to get to the next level. That amount of money, I think, is $90,000 or $100,000 a year. So that's like a little higher than the average wage. Yeah, it's higher than the average wage, but it's not astronomical. Like, I think people can get there and living a pretty good life. I think you can kind of get most of the way there with your salary, and then maybe put some time into like a side hustle, a way that you can earn an extra couple $100 a week. Selling a few things or helping people with something or doing a little bit extra on a Saturday morning. I think it's manageable. I think people can get there. The average wage in Australia, I'm going to look it up on the fly really quickly. Bear with me. Australia average wage. The average wage in Australia is, that can't be right, let's get it up. Is about 1,711 per week. So it's about 80 grand, 82, 83 grand. So, you only got to earn another, say, 200 or 300 a week, gets you up to that 90 or 100 grand. So it's pretty doable, I reckon. It's pretty doable. You don't need to go and earn $300,000. Once you do start earning that type of money, you sacrifice a lot. People that work in banking and finance, and lawyers, they work from 7, 8 in the morning until 11, 12 at night. They burn out. And what a midlife crisis for a lot of people is doing that for 25 years, having the car and the house and the holiday house and that. You've missed out on living life. You missed out on a lot of things you wanted to do. So I think it's just about finding a balance, and being on social media, it's hard to keep that balance in life. Hard to, but we need to find better ways of using it.
Absolutely. I think finding that life balance can be really challenging, but if you find that really small margin that I think there is, it would be amazing.
Yep, absolutely. And it is what life's about. You know, I say to people, we have this false assumption that life is about, and corporations, which we won't go into it, but they're running the world at the moment because of their access to really cheap money. They're able to market and advertise far more than they ever have. So they're hitting us all day with this: you are not enough. You are not enough. All advertising says you are not enough without this product. You need this product to be good, to feel good, to be good, to be a good person, have a good family. You need this for your family. How many times do we see that? And that makes us feel like we aren't enough. But we can offset it by putting time into other things and being around our family and our friends and feeling good about ourselves. And it's kind of like, it's a journey. And we think that it's about going through something in life so that we can learn from it and then profit from it, don't we? It's kind of told, oh, you can learn from this and go through it and then go get this job and do this and this. That's never been what life's about. Life's always been about going through stuff, learning, and then passing that knowledge on. That's the best thing that you can do in your life. The best thing that you can do is help other people. You know, we are social, community-based animals. We grew up in small tribes. I say to people, go through this anxiety stuff, work it out, and then go and start an Instagram page like I do and help people. It doesn't matter if you have 20 followers or 50. The best moment that I've had so far on Instagram was when I had like 120 followers, 200 followers. I've been pumping out stuff for a couple of months. I can't remember how many followers I had. Someone sent me this really long text, this message. And he said that following me has been the best thing that he's ever done in his life. He said every morning he gets up and he checks my post and he throughout the day he thinks about it. I got that and I just started crying. I could not stop crying. My partner come out and just like, what's wrong? And I was like, I couldn't even talk. I was crying. I thought it was going to take me years and years to ever have that moment, to ever be able to help someone. But anybody can do that. Like, I hadn't even fine-tuned my message then. I was just sharing, like I was still fumbling my way through my videos and fine-tuning what I share and how I help people. I wasn't where it's at now. It was kind of very, very amateur. But I had an impact on someone. And that's all I wanted to do, was help someone else who was feeling like me. And getting that, I couldn't stop crying. I was so happy. I felt so, makes me emotional now. Anybody can do that. Anybody can go out there and kind of go through something and then help other people, find other ways to help people. You might even be able to turn it into that side hustle that I was talking about for a bit of, extra income. You never know. Do a counselling course. Only takes a year or two on the side, do a master's or whatever, and you can help people. You can, charge people and go and have 3 sessions a week on the side and help people. You have to take a really long-term view of this stuff, by the way. You can't turn a side hustle 15 grand like that. It takes years to get some qualifications or get some study or practice or learn from someone and then kind of do it. But you got to take a long-term view of stuff. But you can do it. And life has always been about asking yourself these questions of what makes us happy and how I can be fulfilled. And I think that it's just getting harder to work that out because of this social media stuff, how competitive the world is now. It's become very normal for people to be greedy. Like we celebrate greed now, like we're just obsessed with celebrities and famous people. And it's harder and harder to just be happy with yourself and who you are because it's just getting shoved in your face that you're not enough, but you are enough. Everyone's enough. And I think that they used to ask these really existential questions back in, the Roman times, back when the Greeks and Romans used to run the world. And I think we're still asking ourselves those questions: what fulfills me and what makes me happy? But unfortunately, we're looking inside at ourselves and how we can make ourselves happy when the answer is staring at us in the face, and that is other people. Help other people and you'll you'll be happier.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to throw a question at you now. You've mentioned a couple of times that there's a few regrets that you have in the past and in regards to your career and that you should have done things differently. But you're also so passionate about the things that you do now. I believe that there are some things that you can't regret because you wouldn't be where you are today. Do you think that if you hadn't gone through what you have, you wouldn't be where you are now?
Yeah, I think that the reason that I say I would have done things differently and stuff like that, it's not so I could have had a better football career or earned more money or done this or that. It's simply so that I could have had better relationships, friendships, been part of communities more and stuff like that. I've let a lot of opportunities like that slide in my life, and that's what I regret. And on top of that, there's been, I've been that close a couple of times to not being able to be here, have this conversation. I've put myself in some very, very dangerous and scary situations. That scares me a lot as well, that things could have gone a different way and I wouldn't be here. So they're the moments that keep me up at night. They're the moments that I kind of think about and I'm like, they scare me. But yeah, I agree with you. Life's about taking whatever ingredients get thrown at you and turning it into the best dish that you can come up with. So for me, it's just about like helping people with their anxiety, sharing what I know, and hopefully they can take something away from my journey and apply it to their life and so that they can have better friendships and more fulfilling jobs and actually enjoy their life and not being the drive to connect, not the drive to survive. That's my goal, is to teach people how to not be anxious so that they can connect better and live a better life, because that's what life's about, connecting with yourself and with other people, getting out of the survival mode. So I agree 100% with what you're saying. There are just a few scary moments in my life that I'm like, well, I wish I had done that differently.
Yeah. And you've highlighted a few times about connections and how important that is. How do you think COVID is impacting that and the lockdowns?
Well, I think it's just making us look at screens more. We're looking at screens more, and it's like you can connect to an extent on the screen, but it's not the same as actually seeing a face in real life. We have as human beings, when we're in the same room as somebody and we're looking at them, we automatically start to match like our heartbeats and stuff. So that stuff happens automatically. Like we automatically start to assume the emotions that they have. When somebody's calm, then that's infectious, and we start to feel calm. When somebody's anxious, we will feel anxious as well, and we'll start to feel anxious. That's why great leaders throughout history have been people who can be calm, remain calm in situations when others might get stressed. But that doesn't apply to a screen. It doesn't apply to a screen. It's not the same. 2D is not the same as 3D. So we're trying our best, but you can't emulate being with somebody that you love or you care about, or being in a community and that feeling of being in a community. It's very, very hard to emulate that in real life. So COVID is impacting the way we feel about ourselves because we're not getting that same level of connection. And, we are very lucky that, Microsoft and who owns the other, Google, and whoever else owns, Teams and Google Meets and Zooms and all these companies that have allowed us to actually have the screens and have the technology that we have, because otherwise we'd just be doing it on the phone. So it is better than that, 100%. But it's not the same as real life, and that's having an impact on us.
Yeah, for sure. What would you say is one of your biggest achievements so far?
I think the best things that have ever happened to me in my life are the messages that I get from people telling me that they enjoy. It's making them feel better about their journey of recovery. And that's you said there's the thing called hedonic adaptation. As human beings, we get used to stuff really, really quickly. So When I first got these headphones, these wireless headphones, I thought they were the best things ever. So good, but now they're just headphones. That's hedonic adaptation. We get used to stuff really, really quick. When I first got this phone, oh, how good, the face recognition. It opens without having to put a passcode in. Now it's just a phone that I open. We get used to things really, really quickly. And it's very easy to want more things. So we're basically creatures that are, designed based on the dopamine system of reward. And we want more and more and more. If you want an example of that, have a look at the billionaires who want to leave Earth. Nothing on Earth's enough for them now. They've had everything on Earth. So guess what they want? They want to go to space. And then nothing will be enough for them in space. And then they want to go somewhere else. We're creatures that just want more and more and more. That's why we're alive. Because we wanted more and more and more. We wanted to stay alive longer and longer and longer. We wanted more food and more food. We wanted to procreate more. We just always want more. It's very hard not to. But our connection with people and helping other people and getting those messages, you never get used to that. You never get used to that. That's what life's about. And that's why helping other people will make you feel good in the long run, as opposed to trying to push for more money in whatever job you have and buying more stuff, because you'll just get used to that stuff. And then after you've had a Toyota RAV4, you want a BMW X4, X5. Then you have that, and then you want a Porsche. And you have the Porsche, and then you have the Bentley. It just keeps going. Keeps going. You'll never be happy, but when you actually have a role or you strive to make other people's lives better. I should say that my friend who's a real estate agent, he just loves helping people with their real estate needs. The money's just like a byproduct. That's why he's good at what he does, because he does it for those reasons. There's other people that try to make money that comes across like that. So he actually has a pretty altruistic view of his role. And if you ask him what he does, he says, I help people make decisions around real estate. It's nothing to do with selling houses or anything like that. So for me, getting those messages is the greatest achievement of my life, because I think about them all the time, and they make me really, really happy. Achieving great things and, winning an AFL grand final, the best part about that is that I was part of that team. I love what that means to the football club, and I love what it means to other people that I played with. For me, like it's a medal and that's great, but it's like the camaraderie and getting over there and catching up. And next year we have a reunion. They're the things that that make me happy. So I guess they're my greatest achievements.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said before, the average day, like when you were training in football, we were very anxious, throwing up, those kind of things, just survival. What does a day look like now?
Oh, now I'm someone that, my default mode, when life gets too much or something gets thrown at me or something happens too fast or whatever, like I turn to anxiety. That's my default. Like it's just about managing it for me. Like I don't think I'll ever be a yoga teacher or a Buddhist monk who lives in, this Zen state forever. I'll manage it, but I also push myself to do things that I didn't do. So that causes anxiety, and that allows me to kind of apply the system that I use. But yeah, I do my podcast in the morning. Most days I go into the city. I'm in there nice and early. I grab a coffee and then I do some Instagram content, research. So I'm reading, journals and textbooks. And what am I reading at the moment? I'm reading a book called The Molecule of More, which is about dopamine and stuff like that. So I try to find things in there, and then I use that for content on Instagram, make some Instagram stuff, make some videos. We've started doing Zoom calls, so they're lots of fun, just because I love talking about this for 60 or 90 minutes and really making sure people understand the information so that they can ask questions and stuff. We have an event that we run once a month, so we're about to launch our next event, so I'll work on that event. Tonight I'm speaking at a football club for men and women at the Cottesloe Roosters Football Club, so just sharing about my journey. That's not so much about anxiety, that's more about just the process I went on and how I reframed my thinking with my mental health issues from being like an issue to being kind of a research project, kind of like really looking into it on that like kind of deeper level, rather than just like taking everybody's word for it. I took responsibility and started to come up with my own understanding of it. And yeah, just gym, I run a lot. I try to just feel my way through life at the moment, doing what feels right. And slowly just seeing whether this Mr. Anxiety project can be something that I do full time.
Yeah, I think that's really great that you've really switched up how you do things. What are some of those strategies that allowed you to do that?
Well, the most important thing, I would say that the most important thing that I've learned about my recovery from anxiety, and it's pretty hard to explain without a diagram. I have a diagram for this, is whenever I'm doing something, this might be hard for people to grasp. Whenever I'm doing something that causes me anxiety, or I'm looking to apply the kind of system that I use to fix it. Like I said before, I don't deal with the thoughts. I don't put any time into the thoughts at all. I believe that they're a byproduct of something else. And what they are a byproduct of is our automatic reaction to situation, which is based on all of our conditioning in our life. Now, conditioning, it means everything that's basically happened before this moment right now. So right now, this split second, right now, everything that's happened before that is our conditioning. So this is how I view this, by the way. So I don't believe that in the moment when I'm anxious, I can do anything about it. Because that reaction, which comes, if you think about public speaking, you get up there or you get real nervous. Not a conscious thing. It's a reaction to the situation based on our conditioning. So I actually don't try to stop that anxiety on the day. I have a system that I use, which is kind of like a practical application of mindfulness, which I use to kind of try and help me get through the situation on the day. I kind of focus on things that I'm feeling to get me back in the present moment. And I just do my best. And what I do is I see that opportunity, that situation. So whatever I'm doing, say I was really anxious about this today, right? Say I was anxious about doing a Zoom call now and doing this podcast. If I was really anxious about it, I wouldn't try and stop it today. What I do is I use today as conditioning for the next time that situation happens. So right now, I would just do my best. I would do my best, just fumble my way through. I'd accept that however I feel right now is how I feel. And I would use this moment as conditioning for the next moment, for the next time that I get to do a Zoom call. And then do you know what my attitude is on the next Zoom call? It's exactly the same. So the next Zoom call, I'm actually looking to use that as conditioning for the next Zoom call. So I'm never actually trying to make my anxiety better. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm actually just always accepting however I'm feeling on the day. I do my best. Sometimes, guess what? Sometimes I might get anxious and might actually not put in my best performance. That's okay. You see, anxiety wants us to think that this moment right now here is everything. This means everything. Remember that example with Simone Biles where it's like having a gun held to her head. That's how she feels. That's how I felt playing football. So if you're thinking about the next moment and this moment's just training for the next one, then that's the opposite to what anxiety wants you to think. Because it wants you to think that this is the moment. Everything depends on this moment. So for me, focusing on the next moment and just accepting whatever happens today is going to happen, that takes that pressure off, doesn't it? And then guess what happens? I don't get anxious. Because I'm always looking to use the anxiety whenever it comes as training for the next moment. Because I actually want the anxiety to come so that I can use it. And when you want something, it just doesn't come because it's a survival mechanism. Our brain wants to give us the things that we don't want so that it can help us survive. It's a survival mechanism. And when you want something, chase it. It never comes. So I actually want to be anxious in situations so that I can use that to not be anxious in the next situation. And because that's my attitude, I just don't end up getting anxious in the actual moment. It just gets better. So that's probably the best thing that I've learned that I apply to my anxiety. That's been a big game changer. And if I am anxious, so I feel it in my stomach, kind of like if I was doing public speaking at the start when I did my first few talks, that would come as like a in my stomach and then in my chest and throat. When I was going through that, I would just focus on that feeling for a couple of seconds. Okay. just take myself out of kind of the moment situation and just really focus on that for 1 or 2 seconds. And then I'll go back to presenting, go back to my public speaking. And then if I'm feeling anxious again, I'll go back to that. But I'm not trying to make the anxiety, I'm just trying to use it to help me fumble my way through. And then by doing that, obviously, I take this long-term approach with my anxiety and it slowly gets better.
Yeah, and I think that's really great. I feel like I could talk to you for hours. There's so much information that you have that can be shared, but I
We can
will.
always do a session number 2.
I will finish up with 3 questions though. The first one is, what is something that you're most proud of about yourself?
I think I'm really proud that. It's a good question. How do I answer that? What am I really proud of? I'm really proud of, I think I like to treat everybody the way that I like to be treated. And yeah, I treat everybody the same. And that's how I think everybody should treat everybody the way that they'd like. I heard someone the other day say, they said, what law would you like to bring in? And they said, oh, there should be a law that you have to treat everyone the way you want to be treated. I thought that was really cool. And, you know, my mum is like super caring and puts everybody's needs above her. And I feel like I've learned a lot from her. So I enjoy, helping other people. And I kind of try to put other people above myself. And I feel good when I do that. If I put myself first, then in the end, I don't feel that good. So yeah, I would say the way that I treat.
Yeah, I think that's a really important quality to have. What is your favorite quote or the best piece of advice that you've been given?
Oh, that's a tricky one because I read and I watch TED Talks. There's so many good TED Talks. I think my favorite quote would have to be, and it's from Moby Dick, so it's fictional, but it's still a great quote. For as this appalling ocean surrounds the verdant land, so in the soul of man lies an insular Tahiti, full of peace and joy, but surrounded by the horrors of a half-lived life. So it basically means that within all of us, there is this place where we are happy and peaceful and ourselves, but we're not happy with how we're living our life. We're worried about comparing ourselves. And, you know, you've heard that, you know, comparison is the ultimate thief of joy. That's a good quote that gets thrown around as well. But we're worried about whether we're living the right life and all this stuff we're doing. But inside of us is about just getting to that, unpacking all that crap that's on top, construct, as people call it. And deep inside of us is peace and joy.
Yeah, I think that's a really great quote, even if it is fictional, that's still relevant. Now, this last question is a bit broad and open-ended, so feel free to take this wherever you like. But any tips for those that are listening?
Oh, that's a tricky one to narrow it down to a tip. I think when I'm talking to a broader audience, when I'm talking to a room full of people who've been there, who know that my talks are about anxiety and whatnot, I'd probably make it more specific to anxiety. When I'm talking to a broad audience, which I am tonight to a football club, all I say is there is something out there, there is information out there somewhere that you can use to make yourself feel better. Somewhere out there. There are obviously people who have serious, you know, structural mental health issues that this might not apply to, but for the most part, I believe that a lot of us, there is something out there that can help. I don't know where it is. I don't know what it is that's going to spark. I read a line from a book that said, when the mind can't get the okay signal from the body, because there's too much stress chemicals in the body, it will start a never-ending scan of the environment for danger. When I read that line, it immediately changed my life. I'd been reading for 12 or 18 months, a long time, heaps of books. And I read that line and it just hit me like a punch in the face. That is my anxiety right there. That is my anxiety right there. And then I went and read all that person's work and whatnot. There is something out there that will do that for you. I promise you. Something out there. I don't know how long it will take you to get there. It took me 12 or 18 months. Lots of books, podcasts, TED Talks, online seminars. I was doing everything. It's out there somewhere in a book or in a talk. There's something that will make sense to you and you can use to help yourself to feel better. This is for them, I believe, for a lot of people. Not everyone, but a lot of people. Get out there on that journey and find it. When you find it and it starts to make sense to you and you feel better, take that information and what you've learned, try to live your best life, but also pass it on to other people. Pass it on to other people. And I guarantee you, you'll feel better about yourself than you did before you started that journey. So that's my only advice.
I think that's great. And hopefully I'm sure there's many people that will get so many things out of this chat today. So thank you so much for sharing all the knowledge that you have. I really appreciate you taking the time to do that.
No worries. Thanks very much. And I love it when the podcasts have really well-researched questions and stuff. So it makes it really easy and goes the right direction. So thank you for putting the effort into research. I really enjoyed it. It's a great chat, and I'm happy to do another one anytime you like.
Thank you so much.